So yesterday I did a video talking about, oh, could we improve Morgan? Could we make her more broken? But really it was a setup for a series where I want to talk about some of the other I say other, but other low-powered servants in the game, not Morgan. She's not very low-powered, but I wanted to use that as a branching off point. And somebody asked me, how would you fix Geronimo? And you guys have no idea how passionate about I am. Like, I think you could make Geronimo either a really broken DPS servant, or you could make him an insane support type servant. I have put way too much thought into making Geronimo good. You know, I know nobody cares, but I do, because I have just looked at his skills when I first started playing the game, and it's just been something that I've continued to think about, because the baseline over here is really interesting. You gave one character 3 mana bursts at a point where mana bursts were really special, right? You like rarely kind of gave those out. Sometimes people would only get like a 30%. I mean, look at Raiko. They gave her 30% for one turn, and thankfully kind of fixed that later on, but this is kind of unprecedented. They gave him 3 mana bursts, which is really cool. It just turned out to not be super great because the only one he really cared about was the Hearts one, but I think we can make this guy really solid. So, you know, strap in, get comfortable. You're going to be hearing the rantings and ravings of a madman, and if you enjoy at least having some kind of FGO content, when I'm not going to say the games aren't popping off with a bunch of content, but let's just say that NA is... well, I'm waiting for them to do something, so if you like having some kind of discussion every single day, make sure you subscribe. And also, when I'm done, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. But you gotta let me cook first, alright? Let me cook, because I've thought about this for way too long. Okay, there are 2 ways I think you go about making Geronimo really good, but they both involve giving additional effects to all 3 of these skills, right? That is the first thing. We cannot just leave them as they are, because, you know, turns out when you have one quick card, a quick mana burst doesn't really do anything for you, right? It's kind of just a waste. This could have been a dodge, a crit damage buff. It could have been debuff resistance, and it'd be more impactful for Geronimo. I guess once we get Mighty Chains, the Geronimo solo every 5 turns would go crazy, but we could do a lot better than that. So I think there are 2 ways to go about it. You either make them targetable to make him more of a support, or you kind of make them a bit stronger and then you have them be self-supports. But I think it boils down to very basic things. I think it is super, super easy. The first one, though, let's just talk about the quick one. I think, and you do not type in the comments that I'm a crazy person for this. Just make it a 50-star bomb, which I know you're going to be like, ZTL, that is crazy. But dog, 1, it's Geronimo. 2, we already have that on a lower rarity servant in Mozart, and that at least gives Mozart some kind of play. You know, I have not seen a single person ever be like, yeah, I'm unironically going to break out my Geronimo and go do this quest. I mean, I know there's memes. You know, there's people that grail their Geronimos, people that grail like Giles Caster. I've seen stuff like that. But I mean, unironically being like, all right, I'm a normal guy, I'm going to break out my Geronimo. Why? No one has ever said that. Never in their entire life have those words been uttered by someone who's just normal, got their level 70 Geronimo. They're not breaking them out. You know, maybe if you're doing like an FGO Nuzlocke or something, which I'll get back to doing later. I promise that series is not dead. I'll go back and finish it. But every time I want to start it, you know, things get like really complicated. But even then, you have better caster options, right? You get a free goo caster. Bro has 3 dodge. I don't know why you would ever have to use Geronimo. So if you make this a 50-star bomb, I think that already is really, really solid in and of itself, because then you could bring Geronimo, if you have Rampage, or you have, Guda Guda Poster Girl, the other one, like the different taunt CEs, you could even kind of use them as, you know, as you would use Mozart, but maybe if the quick buff is also targetable, there's extra incentive to use him over Mozart, right? Because Mozart, if they're not an art servant, they're really just getting the star bomb. The 44% arts buff is nice, but it would be nicer if they could also get, say, this quick buff if they're a quick servant. Or you could definitely do some like Chloe shenanigans, I guess, if you want to start like plug suiting people around whenever she comes out, you know, not this year, but next year. I'm sure you could do that and just like have or function as like a secondary plug suit and just throw this guy in there as an additional buffer. But it's also a very huge boon for free-to-play players, because just imagine you're doing a boss fight and you don't really have any other supports. You've got, you know, your waiver and stuff, but your team might not be fully leveled. You might not have other supports to really go into. And then you kind of use Geronimo as a pseudo star bomby quick support type guy, right? I think that in and of itself is very good. You could also, in the spirit of quick, have this be a self, and again, gonna sound crazy, but just make it like a 100% crit buff. I promise you, with a 100% crit buff, it's not like he's going to be breaking the game. In fact, I would say you need to give him just the free 100% crit damage buff to make it worth running the guy. Or you could have it be a targetable, quick, mana burst over here, and then a 50% crit damage buff for 3 turns. I think that's really nice. I think it being 100% targetable crit damage is a little too insane, but I do like the idea of it being like, well, self big buff if you really want Geronimo to be doing some damage, or a targetable 50% buff, because that's more in line with something like Waver, right? And I think it's fine if we can give a low rarity free-to-play servant a 50% crit damage buff. I don't think that's going to break the economy of the game. And you could also throw both of them together. You could just make it a quick mana burst for 3 times for 3 turns, drops, 30 stars and then gives the 50% crit damage buff to somebody, or you could have it be 50 stars and have it be a self 100% crit damage buff, and I think that would make it very, very solid. Again, I have thought about this very extensively, probably way more than I should have, right? But then we have a second skill with the arts buff over here. This one I think is really easy. You either make it a battery, a party-wide battery, or a targetable battery, right? Either one of those I think is very good. The bonus extra effect, like the crit damage on the third skill, could just be NP gain or something. You could just slap on NP gain or something along those lines. And again, it's super easy to do this one, because again, you just change it to either being 3 times for 3 turns, or if it's for himself, just make it flat out 3 turns for the arts buff. And then if it's for himself, just make it a 50% battery. I know it's going to be like, but they're not going to give 50% batteries to these free-to-plays. I know Jolt is not a free-to-play, but they have no problem dumping 50% batteries. I mean, they also did it to Ilya as well. I know they're limited 5 stars, right? But my boy Kucaster's got like 110% battery technically right over there. So if he can get that, just give it to Geronimo. He needs it, man. Give the boy the 50% battery, because then, I don't know, maybe you'll be able to loop with this dude. Actually, I don't know. He's got like 1 hit on his NP, so I don't really know about that one, but it would help out. Maybe you could just brute force your way through it if you have a 50% battery. I think if you can make it party wide, you just have to stick to 20. I don't think anything higher than 20 is super realistic for the entire party. Remember that Castoria gives 30% to the entire party, and we have like not seen anybody else get anything like that. Dude, when they were going to give 50% to the whole party, they broke the ankles of Ace the Savior or Summer Morgan to be like, you have to be using her with Koyenskaya if you want to abuse this consistently, right? Or you got to use stuff like Demonic Bodhisattva, stuff that increases your overcharge. So clearly, I think that is way out of the picture. 20% for the party, even 10% could be very nice. I mean, they gave that to Assassin Wu over here on the NA side of things very recently. I don't think that's that far-fetched, but if you're going to really limit it to 10%, have her give the entire or have him, my bad, have him give the entire party at least like 30% NP gain. I think they can make it a very nice little utility skill. And again, when you build that in combination with the third skill over there, I think we're starting to get a very, very strong servant. A guy that can come in, just give you even a decent 10% amount of NP, some nice NP gain, give you an arts buff, come in here, give you a quick buff, drop a couple of stars. Maybe if it's only 30, that's still fine, and give you a small crit damage buff. I think that's already very, very solid in and of itself. It's also ironic if you have all of these be targetable, it helps out Yui in a way, because there's a free-to-play servant that can turn any other guy into being like Yui compliant with her own NP, which again might be something that might be cool, although Yui is limited, so I don't know how many people that helps out. Definitely not people like me that got booty blasted on her banner. But then finally, the Buster one. Now, I could also see them adding the critical damage over here on the Buster card as well, because, Buster crits kind of goes hand in hand. It just makes sense. But I think you want to give that to the third skill, and you actually just want to go all in for damage for this one. And this might be the most absurd one if you make this targetable. But if you have it be a targetable Buster, Arts, NP damage buff, even if the NP damage and the like attack buff, they're just 20% or something, that's still really nuts, because you're giving them a mana burst that hopefully gets upgraded to 3 times for 3 turns, or just straight up 3 turns if we want to be absolute maniacs over here. And then giving the attack and NP damage buff. Look, that not only starts to help out people like Oberon, because there's a free-to-play option that you can use in that, although I don't see a real practical use of using that for farming, because why would you, like, you're gonna plug suit in the guy out instead of plugging Oberon in? Very, very strange. And then you have one Koyanskaya. I don't know. Very, very, very weird. I don't know if that really practically works in those scenarios, but maybe if you're doing something with like challenge quest related, and you just need to absolutely just nuke somebody into the sun, just kill that guy immediately. You know, you have this guy giving you all the card buffs, and then you're also getting the attack buff as well, which is really, really nice as well. Again, I know it might sound a little insane to do this for someone like Geronimo, but I think if you want to have him be usable, you got to do something like this. You can either do that to make him more of a support, or again, you can make the values a little bit higher, and then that way, you know, they'd be selfish buffs, right? Instead of like 20 and 20% for attack and NP damage, which is already a bit absurd. You could go 20% attack, 30% NP damage, or vice versa, or both are 30% if you really want to get out there. But he could definitely use it, because where is Geronimo? Yeah, he's right here. All right, look at this, 23k. That, come on, we could definitely do better. We could do better. And I know people are going to be like, well, Caster is hitting lower than him. Yeah, Caster, again, like I said, has basically like 110% NP, or like not Geronimo, but Chen Gong over here can like recycle loopers and everything. And, you know, you've got Needlecris over here that can do like special insta-kill memes and stuff like that. I don't know. I think you could do something like that for him. I mean, obviously, you could try to go buff his NP, but they did not really do anything last time. I don't know if I trust the Lissengle to try to buff his NP again. So, I don't know. Let me know if this is just the rantings and ravings of a madman, but I've been thinking about this for the longest time. It's also why I say that you can't just do one buff at a time. Or if you're going to do one buff at a time, it's like you got to give this to him in January, then in June, and then in December. Like, it's got to be boom, 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 back to back to back. Because some of these buffs where it's just, oh, here, take this one buff, and then we're not going to touch you for another 2 years. It's like, yeah, that was a really good step in the right direction, but now they're just left dead in the water. So, unironically, not only do I think it'd be very funny for Geronimo to become this really god-tier free-to-play support, but I think you could also just make him an insane damage maniac, which I just think would be very entertaining. Like, can you imagine starting to see setups on YouTube where people are like, all right, here's my Geronimo setup for this Kiara battle? Like, I think that would unironically be really funny, but, and it doesn't destroy, like, the meta of the game at all. Like, if anything, it's cool. It's something that's nice that you could do, but, you know, you're probably just going to go do your double Artoria or double Koyanskaya stuff anyway. But let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace!